Hello everyone, today I've got a super important topic. We're going to be talking about NFTs, non-fungible tokens. This is something that you're going to hear a lot more about over the next 5 to 10 years. It's currently on the radars of billionaires Chamath Palihapitiya, Mark Cuban, and Gary Vaynerchuk, all right? Those are three big names. If you know any of them, you know that this is something worth paying attention. I'm going to tell you what an NFT is, how it works, and of course, we're going to talk about the 600 Ethereum CryptoKitty, which at its peak a couple of days ago would have been valued of $1.2 million for a little JPEG of a cat. So let's get into it. Okay, so first I need to explain to you what fungible, non-fungible are, and as well what tokens are. Let's go to Paint. Okay, so first we have to start off with what an asset is. Well, an asset is just anything which you can own that has value, okay? So this can then be split into fungible and non-fungible. Let me do some magic here. Boom, 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 boom. And now we have everything on the board. So what is a fungible asset and what's a non-fungible asset? Well, a fungible asset has these properties. It is divisible, it is interchangeable. So that means that if you have a fungible asset, it means you can split it into smaller little bits of it, and those smaller bits each retain their value by themselves. The value of the bits is proportional to what the total thing is, so you can divide it. 1/10 of the fungible asset is just worth 1/10 of it. You don't actually lose value by splitting it. And as well, you can interchange it. So for example, 1/10 of it is equivalent to the other 10th of it. So let me give you 4 examples of what fungible assets are and why they are fungible. Okay, so let's start with the first fungible asset, which is gold. So if you have a bar of gold, let's represent it with this box here. So this is your little bar of gold. Well, if you split it in half, right, you just cut this bar in half, and now you have 2 equivalent smaller boxes of it. Well, each box is worth exactly 1/2 of this big box, and if you were to put them back together and make back your big box, well, you can totally do that. And as well, 1/2 of the block is totally indistinguishable from the other half of the gold bar. So this gold is divisible and it's interchangeable. You do not lose value. And now let me give you another example. So another great example is cash, and I'm going to make that in green. Now let's go to the second example of a fungible asset, cash. If you have 10 US dollars in cash, well, you can exchange it for 2 $5 bills, right? And those 2 $5 bills have exactly the same value as the $10 bill. And as well, you can exchange this $10 bill for any other $10 bill in the world, and it doesn't change anything. Every single $10 bill is completely interchangeable. It's completely divisible into smaller amounts, and they all retain their value. No value is lost when you split it into different parts, and as well, no value is lost when you interchange it for another equivalent dollar bill. So let me give you one more example to make it ultra obvious. So you have 6 Coca-Cola cans. Well, if you only sell 3 of them, these over here, I'm going to mark them with an X. Well, these 3 cans are just worth whatever half of it was, because a packet of Coca-Cola cans doesn't actually lose value to the end customer, right? Okay, maybe the supermarkets have deals, maybe it's not the perfect example, but as well, you don't care if you get Coca-Cola can number 1 that's produced, or you get Coca-Cola can number 100,000. It's the same to you. And if you want 1 liter of Coca-Cola, it's more or less the same to receive a 1 liter bottle or like a couple of different cans that add up to a liter. So Coca-Cola is as well divisible and interchangeable, and it doesn't lose value when you do either of those. Now, a non-fungible asset is one of a kind, and it is non-divisible. Let me give you 2 examples, and it's going to be ultra obvious. So one example is the Mona Lisa. You obviously can't split the Mona Lisa into different parts. You are going to cause damage to the painting, and it's going to lose a whole lot of value. It's also one of a kind. You can't replicate the Mona Lisa. You can make a copy of it, but it's not the same asset, right? If you exchange the real Mona Lisa for a copy of the Mona Lisa, well, obviously the copy is worth much less, so you lose value. So for example, the Mona Lisa would be a non-fungible asset because it's one of a kind, and you will damage or lose value when you divide it. So it's non-divisible. It needs to be taken whole. Let me give you one more example of a non-fungible asset. A house. You can't split a house into multiple parts. You can't just exchange a house for another house and have them be equivalent assets. No, this sits on a specific piece of land, right? Not all land is equivalent. If you have another house in another neighborhood, or even further down the street. It's further away from the supermarkets, for example. That affects its value. So a house is as well a non-fungible asset because every single house is actually one of a kind. When you replace it with another house that's in a different location or just not this house, the valuation does change. And as well, a house is non-divisible, right? You can't split one house into, well, sometimes you can, but you get the point. You can't split one house into other houses without changing the value of the asset. Now we have to talk about tokens. So let me tell you what a digital token is. It's actually very simple. A token is just a digital certificate that's stored on a blockchain. That means that it's a digital asset. It's a publicly verifiable intellectual property authenticated on the blockchain. Now that's a bit of a mouthful, but it just means that if you hold this digital certificate, it's proof that this intellectual property, right, this thing that exists is yours, and you can verify who owns this intellectual property by looking at the history of the blockchain. So a token is a digital certificate stored on the blockchain that gives you the right to an intellectual property. Let's combine the two. If you have a non-fungible token, well, first of all, it's a digital certificate of ownership, and the non-fungible part means that this digital certificate is one of a kind and non-divisible, right? So the intellectual property which this digital certificate gives you ownership over is one of a kind and cannot be divided. You might be asking me now, well, okay, that's great. Now I understand more or less what an NFT is, but what makes them special? What's the difference between having an NFT and having a Bitcoin? Well, because of its properties, you can do some pretty interesting things with it. Let me just go over the properties once again. So a non-fungible token, an NFT, is unique, and its uniqueness is stored by the metadata of the token. It's provably scarce. You can see exactly how many were made and the sales history of the NFT directly on the blockchain, right? And it's not divisible, it's indivisible. That means you cannot sell a part of an NFT. It's not invisible. That would be cool, but probably very useless. So indivisible. You cannot sell just a part of it. You have to sell the entire thing. What can you then do with these NFTs, and why are they going to be the next big thing, and why are you going to hear a lot more about them? Well, you can use smart contracts with them on Ethereum, and Ethereum has a couple of standards here, ERC-721, ERC-1155, and these are just standards for creating different tokens on Ethereum, which you can then use in smart contracts. Now, if you're lost here, I'm going to give you a quick 10-minute refresher. So Ethereum is actually a network. It's not just like Bitcoin is just a coin, but Ethereum is actually a network, and the money that's used to police this network is called Ether, and that's what you usually hear as Ethereum, and that's used to make sure that the load on the network stays pretty much okay, right? If there's a very high load on the Ethereum network, well, the fees go really high to try to push that load back down. And what people do on this network is they create smart contracts, and these contracts, once you input them, they cannot be tampered with, they cannot be changed. So basically, the code is the rule of law. Obviously, this starts to get quite complex, right? And in engineering as well, you have a certain set of guidelines, which are the ISO guidelines. And these guidelines give you templates and rules that you need to follow for pretty much anything, right? Different types of screw sizes, or different types of nails, or different types of steels that you can use in buildings are all regulated by all kinds of ISO guidelines. Well, for Ethereum, they have ERC guidelines. So ERC 20 is the Ethereum standard for creating fungible tokens on the Ethereum blockchain. This is used for stablecoins and DeFi tokens like USD Tether, DAI, and Uniswap. Let's go to the next one. ERC 721 is the Ethereum standard for creating non-fungible tokens on the Ethereum blockchain. So with this one, you can create NFTs. And now we have a next generation Ethereum standard, ERC 1155, which allows you to create both fungible or non-fungible tokens. This is kind of the next generation of tokens, and this is going to be very useful because now you're going to be able to have kind of games running or contracts running where you have usage of both kinds of tokens. You can have fungible tokens and you can have non-fungible tokens. So for example, you can have a game where you have gold, and that's the monetary system in the game, but you can also say like, okay, we're going to release very, very limited armor, like literally one of a kind armor, and only one person can own it at a time. So then the gold they would have would be a fungible token, and then this very specific armor that's one of a kind would be a non-fungible token, and they would be able to operate together in one smart contract or game. So now we've already talked about the billionaires. This is what you guys have been waiting for. What is a CryptoKitty, and why was it sold for 600 Ethereum in 2017, which gives it a value of $1.2 million? Well, let me bring up a picture of this CryptoKitty. If you go to cryptokitties.com and you look up the dragon CryptoKitty, it is worth 600 Ethereum, right? That's the buy now price. And you can see exactly who owns it. Rabono, whoever this guy is, you can probably find more details about him through the blockchain, but he is offering this little JPEG of a cat, right? I don't believe you can really interact with it or anything. He owns it, and he's willing to part with it for another 600 Ethereum, which is $1.2 million. Now, you could literally just go into the snipping tool, for example, take a screenshot of it, and well, now you have the kitty, right? Now I can use the kitty, I can put it wherever I want, and I didn't pay $1.2 million for that. But I cannot say that I have the ownership of this kitty. Only Rabono can say that. So if he were to say, hey, I don't want anybody else to use this cat, well, if you can't prove that you're Rabono, he can actually technically go after you for using his intellectual property. And where this gets interesting is when people start to use NFTs for things like houses, right? If you tokenize a house and you say, all right, we're going to have all the houses have NFTs. So when you own the NFT, that's the proof that you own that house. And now all of a sudden, instead of taking all kinds of ownership documents to the bank, you can just go on the blockchain and say, hey, does anybody want to give me a mortgage against this house or loan against this house? Here's the document proving that I own it, as well as some data about the house. And literally just through the smart contract, they would take that NFT, hold it as collateral, so they would have kind of ownership of it if you were to fail to pay back the loan at some point. Ownership of the NFT would just transfer to them. So you might think, okay, but that's coming in the future. Well, the truth is that actually from the further research I've done, which I'm not going into in this video, this is already starting to happen on the blockchain. People have already figured this kind of stuff out, and they're already running programs. So I think it's just a matter of time until we get mass adoption of NFTs. So guys, if you really want to learn more about this, I literally found out about this like yesterday or today, and I had to share this because this is super interesting. So if you got smarter and you thought that this was a good video for you, please hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe I find some ways where there's somehow a way to actually like make money for us from it. Maybe there's certain artists or whatever that are actually worth investing in at this moment. Right now, I haven't looked into it deep enough. I think I need to get a lot smarter on this topic before I'm ready to give any kind of opinions on like what I personally think might be worth more in the future. Currently, there's a huge NFT bubble going on, so please be careful, right? For every 1% of NFTs which are going to be worth something in the future, 99% of those are not. So it's really, really important that you start to make sure you get educated on this topic, because this is going to be important going forward. Thank you guys for watching. As always, I try to make sure that you guys are the most informed and the smartest community on YouTube. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.